Hey folks, it's Corey Glover, and you're watching and listening to Epic Footnote.
Hey guys, what's going on? It's There Goes My Hero. I'm Matt.
And I'm Zach.
One of our 2 interview segments that we do with artists, and you clicked on the picture, you know it's Corey Glover of Living Colour. It was a great interview. And Zach, what did we get into with Corey?
Well, first off, Corey Glover, he is one of the most legendary, most respected, beloved vocalists in music of the past 4 decades. When you hear his voice, you know it's Corey. And whether it's with Living Colour or even of his new band, Disciples of Verity, a really awesome, just heavy band that just released their debut album, Pragmatic Sanction.
Yeah, from the
so
singles, it sounds pretty good.
Oh yeah, it's a departure for him too. So it was really cool to first start off the convo just getting a little bit more insight as to what attracted him to doing more aggressive music and more of a heavy metal approach. And then also just, can you believe that it's been 30 years since Time's Up came out?
Yeah, I know. That's, once again, are you ready to feel old? No.
Yeah.
The answer's always no.
Love making you feel old. But it was awesome to kind of just hear memories about recording Time's Up. And then also touch upon how, sadly, it's as relevant as ever, the messaging behind the album. And kind of just hearing where he's at Mindframe with the new Living Colour album that they're working on right now. But I think the most exciting part for you and I, Matt, was hearing how he got to meet Mick Jagger and all the personal interactions that he's had over the time. I had no idea even about some of the stuff that Mick did during, the tour that Living Colour opened for them. So that was just, it was just a really special conversation to have with Corey.
Not to be clickbaity, but I'm actually going to say you'll never believe what he had to say about Mick in the first time that he actually saw him.
Yeah, it was really funny. And then even just finding out what Mick did for Corey in the studio was remarkable too. But you know what? Why are you hearing us talk about this? Listen for yourselves. Let us know also what other artists you want us to talk to in the future on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Epic Footnote. And sit back, enjoy part 1 of our chat with Corey Glover. Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
I know you've been actually looking to work on making heavier music than you've typically done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, how would you describe or even compare the gratification that you get from singing more aggressive music like you do with Disciples of Verity versus how you get the feeling from singing with Living Colour and those songs?
Well, it's a not unlike some of the stuff I do with Living Colour in that it requires you to be in an emotional headspace in order to do it. With Disciples of Verity, it's all aggression. And what's different about it, to me, than any other kind of metal music that I've listened to or that I've been a part of, is that it's very internal. It's a very sort of like an internal monologue of what's going on around you and trying to understand that. And the pain and the angst and the ennui that comes with it is where the heavier, harder sort of aspects of the music comes from for me. So this is whereas the kind of stuff I'm doing with Disciples is a facet of Living Colour. This is like the whole thing is about aggression.
Mm-hmm. Well, what is it about that aggression that appeals to you most?
Well, everybody wants that. Everybody wants to feel that couple minutes where you can just go, and just let it all out and just get it all out of your system. And this is a whole record, a whole album of that kind of stuff.
Cool. Now, I'm going to throw it back a little bit. I got a question about Time's Up. So this year it marked 30 years since that was released. What do you actually remember the most about that? Is there one thing that sticks out in your head, or there's a couple memories that you have?
Well, this is the follow-up to Vivid, and we had very little time. We had just ended our tour officially in December of the year, was it 92? So 93, we started working on the record. Started trying to make things work and get into a headspace to make it work. And we were rehearsing and writing in a place out in Jersey, and we were coming up with all kinds of stuff and had a bunch of ideas. In the middle of recording it, we found out we won a Grammy, which we thought was really weird. It's like, yeah, we won a Grammy. Let's get back to it. So we were really into making that record and coming up with some really interesting ideas. The title song, Time's Up, came out of there trying to really focus on saying something other than things that were happening around us and not particularly being all the things that affected us as human beings and specifically the environment and that kind of stuff. So we were trying to stretch out a little bit on that one.
Do you, because you also had a lot of interesting and diverse collaborators on that album. Is there one collaboration on that record that still stands out to you and that you still have to kind of pinch yourself to be like, oh, wow, I still can't believe that actually came together?
Well, you know, having Little Richard on your record is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to know Little Richard knows who you are more than enough. And then for him to do what he did was great.
What do you recall the most about actually working with him? Did you get to actually be in the studio with him, or
we're not in the studio with him? We sort of sent him the tracks and he did his thing and then he sent it back to us. And we were like, I don't have any notes for him. Do you have any notes for him?
Even if you did, would you really give Little Richard notes?
Well, no. I'm not, just to record what he'd say back to us is the only reason why I'd say, could you be a little less aggressive? And just to see what he'd say.
So on a slightly sadder note, I mean, unfortunately, as the recently released video for This Is the Life shows, not much, if really any progress has been made in regards to racial injustice after 30 years since the album came out. And as a band that's been very vocal about that, has what's going on lately and has that lack of progress inspired you in Living Color for the forthcoming album?
Yeah, obviously. It's going to be paramount to that. It's going to be about that. It's hard when we've been talking about this and chronicling this idea forever. But what is more important is that we've been dealing with this all of our lives. That album may be 30 years old, but it was, in some cases, 30 years in the making. Mm-hmm. And the fact that now 60 years on, we're still having to deal with it. And I never thought that a song was going to change the hearts and minds of Americans or the world writ large. So, but the fact that we can still talk about these things and to the detail, nothing has changed, is rather disconcerting and rather disheartening. And I would hope that we would have learned something by then. And though things have been moving incrementally, it's too slow. It's way too slow.
Mm-hmm. So kind of with this theme still in mind, it doesn't have to be just on Time's Up, but across all of the Living Color catalog, what 3 songs are you the most proud of for the message that they deliver?
Well, This Is a Life is definitely one of those songs. Time's Up has its thing. On the record before last, we did a song called Not Tomorrow. It was written by Will Calhoun. And it was recorded the day my mother died. And that has a major significance to me. There's a bunch of songs. I mean, all of them. It's like picking your favorite child. The one that pays you for those.
Good answer. But I think it also goes to show that music is so timeless in a way. Right. That for better or worse, even. Absolutely.
Up until very recently, in terms of radio play and in terms of spins, Cult of Personality still plays like it's a top 100 single. That song is over 30 years old. That's how timeless it all is.
I know that the band had initially hoped to do more to celebrate Time's Up and its 30th anniversary. Given everything that's going on, has the band reevaluated what it might be able to do? I mean, I think it's great that you were able to do a video for This Is the Life and, make sure that message gets out. But is there any other plans to maybe celebrate that this year?
We're going to try to. We may have to postpone it till next year and do it on the 31st anniversary as opposed to the 30th anniversary. But, it's still 30 years on. Next year will be almost 34 years for Vivid. So, there's a lot to celebrate. But resting on our laurels is not something we do often. Like, we know we need there's still work to be done. And there's still things that we need to say. So that's much more important. And hopefully, as we all know, 2020 is a wrap in terms of seeing live music in a kind of way. And until things change for the better, you're not going to see much live music. You may see us do a live on video kind of thing somewhere, but no real concert kind of thing is going to happen. for a while. And I think we're going to wait to see what happens. And then hopefully next year we'll be doing some stuff. We'll be out there.
Now, does that also mean that progress on the new album that Living Colour is working on is kind of on hold as well?
Not really. No. We are all in the collaboration mode right now. It's here's this idea, here's that idea. Like, I got an MP3 of it. I'll send it to Will, or send it to Vernon, or send it to Doug, or send it even to Muzzy, and see what they think, and maybe they can add to it or subtract from it. And then at some point, we'll all figure out how to get together in one place and do it. Obviously, after we've all taken the test and saying that we're all negative.
So you wouldn't want to do anything like over the computer or remotely?
We could do that, but it's not going to sound the same as if we're all in the same room. That's the way the magic happens. It's how we feed off of each other. That's the only way I know how to do it. I can talk to them on a Zoom call, on a Skype call, and it'll be okay, but it won't be the same.
Right. And David Ellefson kind of said the same thing when we talked to him, that Megadeth really wanted to be in the same room and feel, that energy and that vibe when they all got there. Absolutely.
That's the only way it works. And that's the only way that you'll be able to feel it, is that we felt it.
Exactly.
And I was even going to say, I know that Disciples of Verity got to do a live performance together from a studio for a webcast, and like you said, it just shows being in person makes a huge difference as opposed to remotely. As fun as that might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, but you don't have the feedback from an audience. You don't have, it was kind of disconcerting to play these songs and then stop and then nobody says anything. So, and that was good. Okay, let's move on to the next song.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's not the future for too much longer.
I would hope not. Or at least find a way to make it participatory with an audience. Not likes and hearts and that kind of stuff. But like, you can find a way to turn those things into applause and exclamations of some kind.
Yeah. Well, I'm just not ready for drive-in concerts. I don't know.
I went to a drive-in last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and one screen was playing Ghostbusters and the Karate Kid, and the other screen was playing the Blake Shelton concert. And somehow, I went to the wrong screen. I was surrounded by pickup trucks. Like, I don't think this is where we're supposed to be.
So were you supposed to be going to see the Blake Shelton concert, or did you get stuck at the Blake Shelton concert?
I kind of got stuck at the Blake Shelton concert.
That's actually even
Nothing
funny.
against Blake Shelton. Amazing songwriter and singer. I love what he does. I didn't want to go see it. I wanted to see Ghostbusters.
Who would have thought that would have been a scenario you found yourself in? I got stuck at a Blake Shelton drive-in concert. I was just trying to see Ghostbusters, but here I was seeing a country concert.
Right. That guy does not look like Bill Murray.
Maybe a little bit Dan Aykroyd. I don't know. So now I'd like to segue into the time that you actually got to meet your musical hero. And you'd still like to talk about Mick Jagger, correct?
If you want to talk about Mick, we can talk about Mick.
Oh, listen, we're all about talking about Mick.
Yeah, Mick was a very interesting sort of thing.
Let's even throw it back to before you met Mick. When was the first time that you remember hearing the Stones?
I remember seeing them on television, and I thought Mick Jagger was the funniest looking guy in the world. That is a giant head on a skinny man, and that's a lot of mouth and teeth in there. There's something going on.
And years later,
hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Your head is still very big. It's even bigger in person.
It's even bigger in person?
Even bigger in person.
Because it looks really big on TV, so I can't even imagine it's in person.
It's a bobblehead. I'm trying to tell you.
Were you afraid that he'd be like leaning over too much and suddenly just fall?
Right. I guess you got really strong neck muscles for a head like that. You have to.
It's the rooster dance. That's how he stays in shape. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, Doug Wimbish was working with Mick when he introduced him to the band, and he actually brought him to a show of yours at CBGB's.
Well, here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Doug was working with Jagger on his Primitive Cool record. He played on it, and he was in his working band. And They needed another guitar player. They needed a lead guitar player. So Doug and a few other people arranged it so that Vernon could go to an audition. I just quit my job at Tower Records. That's how old I am. And Vernon came by the store, and I was just leaving. He's like, I'm done. I'm gone. It's like, well, come with me to this audition. So we went uptown to this rehearsal studio, and there's a bunch of guitar players sitting outside waiting their turn. And me and Vernon are sitting there looking around like, yeah, there's a lot of people here. It's really cool. And next thing you know, Jagger runs out of the rehearsal and comes because he heard we were here. It's like, I heard a lot about you guys. I heard you doing some really good stuff. I'm really, really interested in hearing it. It's like, and we said offhandedly, well, you know, playing CBGB's on Saturday. You want to come down? Come on down. Whatever. He's not coming. Fuck him. He's not with it. I don't think he can get his head in through the door. Anyway. Vernon went in and auditioned, and we left. And so that Saturday, Jagger shows up with Jeff Beck.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
At the gig. It was all right. The gig was good. And he was like, you guys sounded great. Anything I can do, just let me know. I'll be glad to help you guys. I'm like, thank you. Thank you very much. So, like a month later, he calls and says, look, I'm finishing up the rest of my record in a studio in Midtown, and I have the whole studio to myself. So I'm mixing in the A room. The B room is free. If you guys want to come in and we can work on some demos, maybe this can help. I'm like, no problem. That sounds great. I think we can do that. We don't have any time. We still live with our parents. I don't have a job anymore. Let's do it. So we went there, and that's where we met Ed Stasium, who eventually became the producer for Vivid and Time's Up, and who was his engineer at the time. And I got to sit down and talk to Mick Jagger. I mean, I'm sitting across from him talking about music. And at the time, I was listening on my Walkman to a lot of blues. Like, I had just bought Super Blues. I'd gotten some Muddy Waters. I bought some Howlin' Wolf, some Little Walter. I had all this stuff I was listening to. And I was talking to him about it. And we were having this long conversation about music. And he's like, have you ever heard this? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard this? You should hear this. You should hear that. Like, yeah, thanks. I think I'll go out and get it. Next day, he comes into the studio and hands me a cassette. He had gone home and made me a mixtape of all the blues 33s and 78s that he had in his house.
Did he put like a little heart on there?
For Corey, love. So he gave me this cassette. I still have that cassette.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
That is so. And I mean, even if he did that today in just a playlist, that's still incredible. We're talking about 87, 88 when you had to put actual effort into making a mixtape.
Like, yeah, he had to dust off the records and set up the cassette player, and he made me a mixtape.
What was going through your mind when he handed you this mixtape?
Like, holy shit. I have a cassette made by Mick Jagger of music that he likes that he wanted me to hear. I felt like validated. Like,
yeah,
my musical knowledge was furthered by Mick Jagger, of all people, who was a expert at this point on what the blues was. He was the man who met Muddy Waters, who brought his bags in to Chess Records. First, they thought he was the porter bringing in their bags, and they realized it was fucking Muddy Waters, their idol, carrying their bags. Like, he knows more about them than they knew about themselves in some cases. This is obviously, this is prehistoric compared to what you can find out about these people on the internet. They did due diligence and studied these people, understood where they went, who they were, why they were at Chess Records in Chicago in the first place was because they knew so much about Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Little Walter and Etta James, all of them. Was because they knew so much about it. That's why they were there. They wanted that same sort of energy for themselves. It was incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And because, you know, my introduction really to the Stones was Miss You, which was sort of like quasi-disco kind of tune kind of thing. So the fact that he understood, it wasn't sort of like I thought it was like sort of this kitschy sort of, it's kind of like this disco kind of thing. And then I went back and realized, no. They understood the evolution of the music. and they kept dealing with the evolution of where the music was going. And disco just happened to be a pit stop in the midst of moving forward, but it was still 3-4-5 blues with a different kind of beat. They understood that, they got it, and that was incredible to me.
I mean, I think it kind of goes to show you how underrated. I mean, everyone calls them the greatest rock band, but really they were a rhythm and blues band.
They were a blues band.
Yeah.
You know, Keith Richards plays 5 strings. He doesn't play 6-string guitar. He can. He would if he wanted to. He plays 5 strings because he wants that open G.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He wants that sound. He wants that feel. It's incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah. I was actually going to ask you, but I think I kind of got the vibe already. You know, what do you remember about meeting Mick for the first time? You know, the teeth, the lips, the head.
Right.
Kind of got that. But what would you say is the most valuable thing that you learned from Mick?
That you are always learning something from somebody else. You know, we were doing, on the demos that we did with Jagger, we did Glamour Boys and we did Which Way to America. 2 songs that are somewhat diametrically opposed to one another. And we were doing the demos, we were doing the songs, and Jagger knew calypso music. Jagger lived in Jamaica. Jagger understood exactly where that was coming from, right? Because he went down there and studied it. He hung out with the Wailers. He hung out with Jimmy Cliff. He understood that. He was getting high as fuck, I'm sure. But he studied it, so he understood it. In order for him to get it, he had to be there to get it. Right. In order for him to really give it what it deserved, he had to be there to find out. And the other thing that most people don't know, eventually in 1989, we were on a Steel Wheels tour. And it was just, you know, this is a stadium tour. This is like the biggest tour of that particular time. And we're playing in football arenas around the country. But what people did not know was Jagger would put on sweats and a hoodie and run out and go hang out with folks at their tailgate parties.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. He would go, look, I only have a couple stipulations. I'll hang out with you for a little while. I can only stay for a few minutes. You can't take pictures, and you can't tell anybody else I'm here.
Wow. Why did he do that? Because out of all the people, I would think that he would want to avoid that at all costs.
No, he would be out there. And there would be times when we'd see this guy, this skinny guy with a giant head, with a hoodie on, walking around. It was like, is that Jagger? Yeah, and then we found out he goes to tailgate parties. He went to tailgate parties.
Wow. That's so wild. Did you ever attend a tailgate party with him?
Oh, I couldn't. I couldn't do that because I'd be screaming at people. You know what the fuck this is?
What are you doing? Giving him this Miller Lite crap? No, give him real beer.
Real beer. Real beer. No Natty Light. What is that?
Giving him a hot dog. He has to go on stage soon. Oh, it's too funny. So, and I was, you know, because you mentioned, you know, you were on tour with him, playing huge arenas. How would you compare? Because you're also one of the few musicians who's actually gotten to collaborate with him in a studio and play with him on the road. Mm-hmm. How would you compare Mick Jagger in the studio versus Mick Jagger on tour?
They're both surprisingly businesslike.
How so?
They are both like, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is when we do it. We are going to play this song, play that song. We're going to run that, run that, run that. He is the boss. He knows what he's doing. He knows how it's done. He knows when and where to put things. When it comes to singing, he is precise with it. It's not like catch as catch can. Okay, we got the take. Let's move on. He wants to make sure that it's right, it's in tune, that it works in the song, that it pitches right, that there's no deviation there, that everything is where it should be.
Wow. Would he restart a take just because, like, maybe the guitar didn't sound right or the bass didn't sound right?
Yes. After every take, we tuned up, so there's no this take was different because you went out just a semi-quaver and all that kind of stuff. He was very precise with it. Make sure that you were right where you needed to be.